In this video, I'm going to show you how to connect any software or app to your AI agents using N8N. We'll cover everything from using N8N's pre-built app integrations to connecting apps that don't have native nodes using APIs and HTTP requests. So by the end of this tutorial, you'll know how to send and receive data between N8N, AI agents, and third-party apps, even if they don't have built-in integrations. If you want your AI agent to interact with CRMs within your company, messaging apps, or other internal databases that you guys use so that it can take actions and do work for you, then stick around because I'll be showing you how you can build this out step by step. So, what can AI agents actually do? Well, AI agents, they aren't just chatbots that respond to questions, they are action takers. So, when connected to your business tools, they can make decisions, they trigger workflows, and complete tasks automatically. So, instead of being limited to answering questions or other customer inquiries, AI agents, they become proactive assistants that help you manage your business operations. So here's just a list of some of the things that AI agents can do for your business. So they stem all the way from answering customer inquiries, so they can respond to customers' questions in product availability, shipping times, pricing, automatically and instantly. They could also pull and update data, so just retrieving customer details, product prices, or other things from your databases. Maybe you use HubSpot, Airtable, whatever it may be. It can also qualify your leads. It can book appointments, send notifications for you, create and update CRM records, generate invoices, and track payments. There's so much. It can automate reports and even run multi-step workflows. So you could chain together multiple actions, whichever you need them to do, like collecting data from one tool, running it through an AI model, and sending the result to another tool. So, I mean, these agents, they work 24/7. They handle repetitive tasks and ultimately, they just allow you to scale your operations without adding more staff. So once they're connected to your software tools, they become more than just chatbots. They become actual digital employees that streamline business processes and save you time and improve your customer experience. Nick Peru here. I build custom AI solutions for businesses that increase your bottom line and save you and your team hundreds of hours. So if you're a business owner and you want to automate your operations to drive revenue and create operational leverage, you can apply to work with us with the link down below in the description. And if you're looking for all my resources like the template to this system and all the other agents and systems I build out, you can find them in my community where we also work more closely with you and give you more in-depth tutorials in a community of like-minded individuals. Link for that's down below. Okay, now before we get started actually building this out, I figured it would make sense to give you guys holistically some insight as to what we're building and why it matters. Now in this tutorial, I'm going to be building an automated workflow that combines an AI tools agent with N8N to fetch live exchange rates of many different types of currencies. I'm then going to update a CRM and notify our team, all without manual intervention. I literally won't have to lift a finger besides building out this workflow that it's just going to do everything for me. So this workflow can be triggered in two different ways. So it can be triggered manually or scheduled to run automatically every single day, making it both flexible and powerful for daily business operations. So you can use it in a couple different aspects. Now the use case. So keeping track of currency exchange rates, it's obviously critical for many businesses, and especially those dealing with international transactions and pricing or financial analysis. So manually retrieving and inputting these rates into your systems can be time consuming and error prone. So with this workflow, we'll eliminate manual work by automating this entire process. So here's what it's going to be doing. We're going to retrieve real-time exchange rates from an external API. So we're going to be using the exchange rate API that I found on Google. We're going to automatically update our CRM with the latest rates every single day, ensuring our records are always up to date. We're then going to send a Slack notification to keep our team informed so they can act quickly with accurate data. So whether you're a small business owner or maybe you can relate to what I'm building out and you're a financial analyst or just part of a larger operations team, this workflow can save you so much time, reduce errors, and ensure that your team always has the latest information at their fingertip. So obviously this use case isn't going to relate to a lot of you guys watching this video right now, but this should give you some insights and inspire some ideas as to what you can do with it. Because all we're doing is we're just connecting our softwares together and we're making calls to all these different websites like Exchange Rate API and just grabbing that information. So there's so many different ways that you can be doing this, and it's not just going to apply to, finance. So here's how the workflow works. I'm just going to break it down It is composed of several key components, and each is designed to play a specific role. So number one, we have the trigger, which I went over just a little bit. So this is how the workflow starts, and this can begin in two different ways. So manually, as I said, and this will begin by, as you can see, we're just sending a chat request to the AI agent. So this is going to be useful when you want to fetch exchange rates on demand, or you can run this automatically. So just using a scheduled trigger that runs daily, just ensuring that your systems are updated regularly without requiring any manual input. Now, this flexibility allows you to use the workflow in real-time scenarios or as part of a daily routine. So they both go hand in hand. Number two, we have the AI agents with tools, and this is the core of the entire workflow. So this is just powered by an AI model. We're using ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT. So this is going to serve as the central brain that connects to external services and process requests and determine what actions to take. So in this case, the agent will make a request to the exchange rate API to retrieve live currency data. Then it's going to process the retrieved data to ensure it's formatted for your CRM and for Slack. So feel free to swap out what I'm using. So for my CRM, I'm using Google Sheets. And for my internal communication, I'm using Slack, but you can use anything like Discord, Teams, email, whatever. So this is just going to ensure that the workflow is dynamic and intelligent. Next, we have something that's a little bit more complex, and this is connecting to the API with HTTP requests. Now, I'll get into this a little bit further in a little bit, but to quickly explain this, we're just going to retrieve exchange rates, and the workflow that we're going to be using, it's just an HTTP request node. So this node, it allows us to connect to the exchange rate API, which acts as a data source for real-time currency information. Now, here's kind of what happens under the hood with these. So to put it simply, the HTTP request node, it's just sending a GET request to the exchange rate API endpoint. And like I said, I'll explain this all in a little bit, so don't get all flustered if you're confused, because I'm sure you might be. Now, the request, it's going to include necessary details like authentication, so your API key and parameters, so the currencies that you're essentially interested in. Next, the API just responds with the live exchange rate data, so it's going to give it back to us, and then we're just going to use this in the next steps. After this, we have updating our CRM. So once the exchange rates are retrieved, the workflow is going to automatically update our CRM. So this just eliminates the need for manual data entry and ensuring our team's always working with accurate and current information, as this is updated every single day. Now, the data is processed and mapped to specific fields within the CRM, like exchange rates for specific currencies and timestamps for when the data was updated. So by keeping your CRM up to date, your sales and operations team can make better decisions even faster. Now, one of the last nodes we have is Slack. So as I said, this is just for notifying our team, keeping everyone in the loop. Now, when the workflow is complete and CRM's updated, all the data is fetched, it's going to send a Slack message to notify our team. I'll show you how this works later, but this message is going to include something simple like a summary, maybe a summary of the updated exchange rates and a confirmation that the CRM has been updated successfully. Of course, it's just going to ensure that our team stays informed and can act immediately on the latest data without needing to check multiple systems manually, like checking the CRM. So what makes this workflow actually super powerful is we can work beyond built-in integrations. So we're going back to the HTTP node that I touched on a little bit. So while N8N, they do support many pre-integrated apps, the HTTP request node, it allows us to connect to literally any application that provides API documentation. So this means you're not limited to just the pre-built native nodes within N8N, like Gmail and stuff that's already in there. You can expand automation to virtually any platform. So for example, Exchange Rate isn't on here. It isn't an application that's offered natively on N8N. So we have to use an HTTP request node to connect to it. So to understand the HTTP request nodes and everything that we're doing, we have to understand the foundations of automation. And to make that possible, we have to rely on APIs, which stands for Application Programming Interfaces. In API, it's just a way for different apps or systems to communicate with each other. And this allows us to send requests and receive data in return. So the key API methods used, not particularly in this workflow, but that you will be using if you use APIs and HTTP requests, it's going to be GET. So GET is to retrieve data. So we're going to be getting exchange rates, for example. POST is another one. And post is just going to send data to another system. So like updating our CRM, that's posting. Put and delete. Now put is just to update something, and delete, obviously remove data. We won't be focusing on anything besides Git. In post, we'll be posting our data into our CRM. So next we have the parameters and headers and the API requests. So when we make an API request, we are often going to include headers and parameters. So the headers, these just carry additional information like your API key, and this is used to authenticate your requests. And the parameters, these define specifics like which currencies you want the exchange rates for. So with these basics in mind, we'll use the HTTP request node in N8N to connect to the exchange rate API and retrieve the data that we need. But first, let's build this out step by step and just rewind everything so I can show you how I go about building these systems. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to start building up here. This will be my clean sheet. Now, what we want to do first is we want to add our trigger. Now, it's probably best if we use a schedule trigger because, regardless if we want to chat to it, I think it's important to have this agent run daily so that our team is just getting live currency data every single day. So, and it's a little bit harder to build out than just the chat request. So let's do this one first. Now, the days. So what days do we want this to run? So we can choose days between triggers and trigger at specific time. So I want this to run every single day. So I'm just going to choose days. You could also choose hours, so the set amount of hours you want it to run, minutes, seconds. So you can get it to run every single second if you want. But we're just going to do one day between the triggers, and we want this to run every day at, let's say, 7 a.m. So trigger at minute, I'll just leave that as 0. Okay. So if I were to activate this, it's not active right now. As you can see, it says inactive. It wouldn't do anything after this, really. It would just run this like you see here. But let's actually get it to do something. So let's connect it to an AI agent and connect it to our softwares after that and all the different apps that we use. So as you can see here, we have our tools agent. There's a lot of different agents that you can use. This is probably the most popular and the most common one that you'll encounter. So this tools agent, there's a lot of other similar ones and allow you to explore that for yourself. And I'll upload more videos in the future covering all these more specifically. What we want to do is we want to provide it with a prompt. So we'll give it a system message, and I'm actually going to copy the prompt from here. So what I said is, I will expand this a little bit. So I said your job is to go down the exchange rate path and then send a, this would probably make more sense if I actually built out the workflow a little bit further. So we'll get into the prompting later. We're not going to deal with that now. For now, just put in your tools agent and we'll come back to it. We'll knock out one of the quick hits right here, and that's setting up the chat model. So we'll use OpenAI chat model. So this is what your agent's going to use to come up with any answers. It's just going to use AI to conversate with. So we'll use GPT-4o. Let's find it down here, right there. Okay, we'll leave memory alone. Memory just allows you to have contextual memory of your previous conversations. We don't really need that. It's not going to be used for it. So what we're going to do is, as I mentioned, we have all these native tools right here. So Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Calendar, Notion, Postgres, all this stuff, Slack, these are all native tools. Exchange Rate, this is a non-native application that we want to get into our workflow. So let's work on that a little bit. Now, what I'm going to be doing is we can just make an HTTP request tool right here and make a direct call to this application and get the exchange rates there. But we do want some more things to happen. So what I did is I created a brand new separate workflow. And I figured this would be the easiest way to show you guys and help you guys get a better sense of how to build these. So instead of doing this HTTP request node directly and connecting it directly to the agent, we are going to call a completely separate workflow tool. Okay, so I'm just going to name this something like exchange rate. And for the description, I will just copy from here. And I'll put that there. Okay, so before we do any of this and connect any of this, we actually have to build out the workflow. the separate workflow where we're going to be making that HTTP request. So what you want to do is open up a brand new scenario. First thing you want to do is an execute workflow trigger. So this is how you could communicate with completely different workflows and agents. So this is a separate workflow right here, completely different project. As you can see, this isn't the same as right here. Now, to communicate, normally you'll want to input something right here, but for sake of this, we don't have to. And the reason for that is because we're not inserting any data into here from the agent. Normally, you'll have to get an output from this agent, and this might sound a little bit confusing, so I won't, spend too much time on it. But normally, sometimes you'll try to get an output from here, so you can later input it into, your HTTP request node. But we're not going to do that for now. Okay, now that we have the execute workflow trigger, what you want to do is you're going to search an HTTP request. Now, this is how we're going to be connecting to this exchange rate, this API. Now, if I come down here, you'll see all the proper things that we have to do. So we have to get an endpoint. We have to input our authentication, API keys, all that good stuff. So to get that information, what you have to do is come to the API documentation. Now, if you're unsure if one of your apps has API documentation, what you can do is just literally search, do a minute of research on the website. Here, they just say documentation. That's what it'll say a lot of the times is documentation, API documentation, or maybe you'll find it under resources. But if I just search exchange rate API documentation, this is how we're going to find what endpoints and everything we're going to have to hook up to actually communicate to this application. So as you can see right here, I just searched API doc and I found it in this Google search. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Now let's actually find our endpoint. So you could see one of the first thing that pops up is the API endpoint. So if we just copy this exchange rate.host/live, and if we just paste it into here, that's how we connect to, that's how it knows where we're going to be connecting to. Authentication, we can leave this as none. A lot of times, if you don't want to show your API key on screen, I don't really care. So I'm just going to put my authentication as none, but this is how you can also connect to your API. For query parameters, we're going to turn this on. Now, how I determine what to enter here, you can see it says right below here, it says access key equals your access key. So that's how I knew what to input right below. So that's what I put. And then I put my API key. How I got my API key is if you just create an account, you'll be able to go into your profile settings and then grab your API key right there. I'm not going to log in right now because I forgot my password, but you get the point. Next up, we have to do base as the name and value as USD. How I came about that is if I scroll down here a little bit, we will see, let me find it. So if we scroll down a little bit, we see right here, source currency switching, which is what we're looking for. We're trying to find our specific currency. So we're going to compare the US dollar to every other currency. So pound and, whatever else there is. Euros, whatever. So let's go ahead and make sure that this is all in here. So in here, we have the access key, API key right there. The base is going to be the US dollar. Okay. We're not going to change anything else. The documentation isn't telling us. And if you're new to this and you have trouble understanding the documentation, just copy it, put it into ChatGPT, ask it for some help, and it will provide you with every single answer that you need to make sure that your HTTP request nodes are running properly. Okay, now we'll just test this out and see if we're making the request properly. As you can see, if I come into the schema, we have this huge list. So we have everything being compared to the US dollar right here. So here's the exchange rates. There's probably a few hundred. And what we want to do is we just want to clean this up. So what I did is I just wrote some code to basically clean up all the information and just give me one single output, or one object, I should say. And I will show you what that looks like when we test this out. So let's run that. Now, as we can see, everything's coming out just as one output, and then we could cleanly put it into our CRM from here now that we're getting this information. So that's where the next step comes in. We're doing Google Sheets. So specifically, I did I'll show you, append or update a row. So if we use append or update row in Sheet, this will allow you to pretty much create new rows. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just connecting to my CRM. As you can see, I already have some stuff in here. So let's just delete everything. Just delete everything that we have in here. Okay, so we had 500 rows down to 0. So I just broke it down into category, currency, and exchange rate. That's really the only information we'll need. Now let's actually map this information. So once you connect your credentials to the node and everything, we'll want to choose the values to send. First, we have to choose a column to match on, and we're going to do exchange rate. That's how we're going to know what to find. So pretty simple stuff right there. Now, to actually map everything, what I'm just doing is I'm just dragging and dropping. So for the rate, dragging that there. For the category, I am dragging that here. And for the currency, going to be here. So something else I did within the code, I broke it down into categories. So if it's above a certain threshold, so if it's above a 1 currency rate, then it's going to be rated as something like medium or high value. So that's also what I'm doing within this code. And if you want to use your own code and build out or have ChatGPT or Claude to write code for you to clean up information or anything else, all you do is a search function, and then you can use it right here. And that's pretty much all I did. Lastly, we'll want to do an edit field. Now this is going to return a response and allow us to realize within this workflow that it's done. It's not going to make much sense why we're doing this right now, but just wait a minute and I promise it will. So anyways, just find an edit field, search up that node, choose the response of the name, and the value is just going to be done. Okay, so we'll save this and we'll remember our name. So this is called HTTP Exchange Rate API. So once you remember that, now we could actually connect to our workflow, or our agent, I should say. So earlier we started building out a workflow tool. So now we can actually find the workflow within here and connect it. So as I said, the title, here it is. We'll just match that up. The field to return, it's the response. So it's looking for that field right there. So as soon as this hits, as you can see, it says response right there. As soon as it gets to this node, it's going to communicate that data back into this workflow. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's go ahead and just let's test this out. But first, we're going to have to build out a prompt. We'll actually connect Slack first and make sure we're getting notifications. So we'll go to Slack tool and we will do which one? I think this one. Okay, so we'll just do send message to channel. We could also send messages directly to users. So if you don't want to send it to a channel. And which channel was it? I think it was CX. And we will say, what can we say? We'll say your daily exchange rate report is finished. Check the CRM. We can even give it a link if you want. Okay. Now we will close this out. And this is all the different nodes that we're going to be connecting for now. So now I'll go over the prompting. What I said to the agent is your job is to go down the exchange rate path and then send a Slack message once that path is done. This is scheduled to run every single day. However, if you receive a chat input, and then I provided the chat input JSON, then you must take the appropriate actions requested. So right now it wouldn't really make much sense, but we're going to have to give it some input. So let's actually do it within here. So I'm just gonna execute previous nodes. I'm gonna have to send a chat first. So I'm gonna move this over. We'll just say, make a request. This isn't gonna make sense and it's not going to be relevant. I just need this agent to have some context. Okay, so the schedule trigger and the when chat message received is now showing up within our inputs. All I did for the text, you have to have something in here if you're using these particular former nodes like the chat and the schedule trigger. We have to put something in here. So what I just did is the readable data from here. You can't see it. You know, we could even remove this. We really don't need that. Okay. So we have the chat input. All I did right there is just drag the chat input over. And simple as that. Okay. Now let's actually try running this. Let's run it off of the schedule trigger. So I'm just going to press play and see what happens. So we'll actually have to run it like this, more than likely. Okay, so it says no prompt specified. So because we ran it through the schedule trigger, we do have to provide it with some sort of information. So let's back up and let's just provide it with let's just back up and provide it with something random. We'll grab readable date and put that in there. So this is always going to show up. So we'll try that and now we'll see. Okay. Play the AI agent. And now, as you can see, it's going through the exchange rate request. So it's going to that different workflow and it's going to send me a Slack message. Before we go into the backend, let's just go ahead and check my Slack. And as you can see right here in the CX channel, so let's say there's 10 other people, all associates. They'll see something like this. Your daily exchange rate report is generated. Check it out here. And then it gives a link and this will direct us right to our CRM. As you can see, we have the category of high value. We have the US dollar compared to all of these different currencies, and I couldn't name all of them. And then we have the exchange rates. So if we go all the way down, we have the categories of high value, and we even have mid-range and low value. So we have everything inputted right in front of us, and it's going to be done daily. All you have to do is just make sure that you're running the trigger schedule, setting it to whatever time that you would like. Okay. Now, if we come into our previous workflow, we'll see what's happening in the back end. So if we go into the executions, we'll see a run, or previous execution, where this workflow was called from the other agent. And we'll see that it's executing a workflow trigger. It's running to the HTTP request, calling the code, updating my CRM, and then returning the done status. So relatively simple. We're only using 2 different applications, and a lot of the times your typical business softwares and programs applications, they're going to be in N8N. So like HubSpot, we'll see, HubSpot right here, ClickUp, Asana, the most common applications are already integrated. So you're not going to have to go through and make API or check the API documentation to all these different apps. So usually it's going to be a little bit more simpler than this, but this is the method that you can use to connect to literally any application using APIs and HTTP requests. So we could also go down this chat message received. So if we were just to say something, we didn't really build this out properly, but if we just say something like, get me the exchange rate for today. So what it's going to be doing, it should return the exchange rate. But you can see it's running through all these different models. It's talking to GPT right now. Let's see. Let's try to find our chat. Okay. Let me open up the AI agent and find the output. Okay, so it says the exchange rate report for today has been generated. You can check it out here. So that's the output. You could also put another output right here and send yourself a text or anything else. But if we open up Slack, we should get another report. Let's see. Yep, it says right here, just the same thing that occurred right here. But yeah, essentially that's it, guys. That's how you can connect your apps and applications to your AI agents within N8N. But yeah, guys, anyways, so if you are looking for this template to the system, so you can just plop it into your own N8N, whatever, then you can get it in my new paid community. But I do highly encourage that you build this out for yourself so that you can get an idea and you're actually learning. But if you're looking to join my paid community, we help you fast track your journey in learning and mastering AI agents and automations and so much more. So highly recommend you check that out. Link is down below in the description. Also, if you're looking to drive revenue and create operational leverage within your business, then you can apply to work with us down below in the description, where we will implement AI agents and automations and really identify where we can drive efficiencies within your company. So you can apply to work with us in the link down below in the description. Anyways, I hope you guys found some real value in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.